Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UE's horizon, watching the stars through the main window. His hands gripped the metal rail as he waited for something that might change everything. Today was the day humans would meet aliens for the first time. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Lisa Carter from her pilot seat. She was young but skilled, with steady hands and quick reflexes. "It's coming from the coordinates they gave us," Jake nodded. 3 days ago, Earth had received a message from space. It was in perfect English, asking for a meeting at this empty spot between stars. The message came from something called the Galactic Federation. No one on Earth could believe it was real. "Are you ready, Amy?" Jake asked the woman standing next. To him, Dr. Amy Foster adjusted her glasses and checked her tablet. She was Earth's best expert on alien life, though she had never seen a real alien before. "As ready as anyone can be for first contact," she said. The space around them began to shimmer. Then, like magic, a huge ship appeared out of nowhere. It was beautiful and strange, made of what looked like crystal and metal mixed together. The ship was 10 times bigger than the horizon. "How did they do that?" whispered Rick Davis, the ship's engineer. His eyes were wide with wonder. Before anyone could answer, Jake's communication screen turned on. A face appeared that was definitely not human. The creature had pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly. Its eyes were large and silver, and its head was longer than a human head. When it spoke, its voice was musical and calm. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Zefter of the Velkari race. We welcome you to this historic meeting." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. On behalf of Earth, we're honored to meet you." The alien's expression was hard to read, but it seemed pleased. "Please bring a small group to our ship. We have much to discuss." An hour later, Jake found himself walking through corridors that looked like they were carved from giant gems. The walls glowed with soft light, and everything was smooth and perfect. Amy, Lisa, and Rick walked beside him, all trying not to stare at everything they saw. They entered a large room, where 5 different aliens waited for them. Besides Zeftar, there was a creature that looked like it was made of water, another that seemed to be part plant, and 2 others that Jake couldn't even begin to describe. "Welcome to Federation Space," said Zeftar. "Please sit. We have prepared seats for your body type." The chairs were comfortable, though clearly designed by someone who had only seen pictures of humans. As they sat down, Jake noticed how quiet and peaceful everything felt. There were no harsh sounds, no bright lights, nothing that might cause stress. "We have been watching your species for some time," Zeftar began. "Your planet is ... unique in the galaxy." "Unique how?" Amy asked, leaning forward with interest. One of the other aliens, the one that looked like water, spoke in a voice like gentle rain. "Your world is what we classify as a Class 12 death world. It is one of the most hostile planets we have ever discovered." The humans looked at each other in confusion. "Hostile?" Rick said. "Earth is our home. It's beautiful." "Yes," said the plant-like alien in a voice like wind through leaves. "That is exactly what makes your species so remarkable. You find beauty in a world that would kill most galactic species within hours." Zeftar gestured to a screen that appeared in the air. Images of Earth flashed by. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, blizzards, deserts, deep oceans. "Your planet has extreme weather that changes without warning. Your atmosphere contains poison gas that most species cannot breathe. Your gravity is 3 times stronger than most worlds. Your sun produces deadly radiation. Your planet's surface moves and shakes regularly. Most of your surface is covered in a liquid that would drown most species." Jake realized the alien was talking about oxygen, earthquakes, and oceans, things that seemed completely normal to humans. "But perhaps most shocking," continued Zeftar, is that your species evolved by consuming other living creatures. You are predators who hunt and kill for survival. This is almost unknown in civilized space. Amy felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying we're the only predators in the galaxy? Not the only ones, said the water-like alien, but certainly the only ones who became spacefaring. Most predator species destroy themselves before they develop technology. The mood in the room suddenly became serious. Zefter's glowing skin seemed to dim. We did not contact you to welcome you to our peaceful galaxy. We contacted you because we need your help. We are facing a threat that our peaceful species cannot handle alone. What kind of threat? Jake asked. The screen changed to show images of space. But something was wrong. Where there should have been stars, there was only darkness. As they watched, the darkness seemed to move, swallowing up more light. They are called the Devourers, Zefter said quietly. They appeared from the edge of our galaxy 6 months ago. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They simply consume everything in their path. Lisa leaned forward. Consume how? They take entire star systems and convert all matter into their ships. Planets, stars, even the space between them. Everything becomes part of their fleet. We have lost over 200 worlds already. Rick felt sick. How many people died? All of them, said the plant-like alien. The Devourers do not leave survivors. They absorb all organic matter into their collective consciousness. The beings we rescue tell us that the process is ... unpleasant. What does this have to do with us? Amy asked, though she was beginning to understand. Zefter looked directly at Jake. Our species evolved on peaceful worlds. We have no experience with the kind of warfare the Devourers represent. Our military tactics are based on honorable combat and minimal casualties. We have never fought an enemy that seeks total destruction. You want us to fight them, Jake said. We want you to teach us how to fight them, Zefter corrected. Your species has spent its entire existence in warfare. You fight each other. You fight your planet. You fight for survival every day. You understand violence in a way we cannot. The room fell silent. Jake looked at his crew, seeing the same thoughts in their eyes. Humanity had barely figured out how to get to other planets, and now they were being asked to help save the galaxy. How long do we have? Jake asked. Our best estimates suggest the Devourers will reach the core systems, including Earth, within 2 years. Perhaps less. Jake stood up slowly. We'll need to contact Earth immediately. Our leaders will want to know about this. Of course, said Zefter. But Captain Morrison, you must understand. We are not asking you to be our allies. We are asking you to be our teachers. The Federation has never needed to learn the arts of war. Now we must learn them quickly, or we will all die. As Jake looked at the alien faces around him, he realized that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but they were also no longer safe. The galaxy was a much bigger and more dangerous place than anyone had imagined, and somehow Earth's most violent species had become everyone's only hope. 3 weeks after first contact, Dr. Amy Foster stood in the largest science laboratory she had ever seen. The Federation research station was built inside a hollow asteroid, with rooms that seemed to stretch on forever. Alien scientists from dozens of worlds worked alongside her, all trying to understand their enemy. This is impossible, said Dr. Canthari, a tall alien with purple skin and 4 arms. He was pointing at a piece of black metal on the examination table. The material should not exist. It breaks every law of physics we know. Amy picked up the metal fragment with special tools. It was a piece of a Devourer ship that the Federation had managed to recover. The metal felt wrong somehow, like it was alive and angry. What happens when you try to cut it? Amy asked. "Watch," said Dr. Canthari. He aimed a laser at the metal, the same type of laser that could cut through starship armor. The beam hit the metal and simply disappeared. The metal didn't even get warm. "It absorbs all energy," explained Dr. Velinara, an alien that looked like a walking tree. "Heat, light, radiation, even kinetic force. Nothing damages it." Amy frowned. "Then how did you get this piece?" "The Devourers left it behind when they retreated from the Coulter system. We think it broke off during the battle." "Or," Amy said, quietly, "they wanted you to find it." The alien scientists looked at each other nervously. The idea that the Devourers might be studying them was terrifying. Meanwhile, across the station, Captain Jake Morrison and his tactical officer Ben Rodriguez were analyzing Devourer attack patterns with Federation military leaders. The meeting room was filled with holographic displays showing star maps covered in red zones. "They don't fight like any enemy we've seen," said General Fixara, a reptilian alien with scales that changed color when he was stressed. Right now, his scales were bright orange. "They have no formation, no strategy, no tactics. They just attack everything at once." Ben pointed to the display. "That's not true. Look at the pattern more carefully." The alien studied the map as Ben highlighted different attacks. "They always hit the outer planets first, but not the ones with the, most people. They hit the ones with the most industrial capacity." "You think they're trying to stop us from building more ships?" asked Commander Zylara, an alien with blue skin and 6 eyes. "No," Jake said, understanding what Ben was seeing. "They're not trying to stop production. They're harvesting it. Look at the timing." Jake connected lines between the attacks. "They hit industrial worlds first, absorb all the manufacturing capability, then use that to build more ships before attacking the core worlds." The room fell silent. The aliens had been thinking of the Devourers as destroyers, but they were actually farmers. They grew their fleet by consuming the infrastructure of their enemies. "How do we fight an enemy that gets stronger every time we engage them?" asked General Fixara. "We don't," Ben said. "We make them fight us on our terms instead of theirs." While the military leaders discussed strategy, pilot Lisa Carter was in the station's flight simulator, trying to understand Devourer technology. The Federation had recovered a small scout ship, but no pilot had been able to fly it successfully. "The interface is neural," explained Chief Engineer Morden, an alien with translucent skin. "It connects directly to the pilot's nervous system. But every pilot we've tried has suffered severe mental trauma." Lisa looked at the organic-looking pilot seat. It was covered in thin tendrils that would attach to her body. "What kind of trauma?" "They report experiencing the collective consciousness of the Devourers, the feeling of being connected to millions of minds at once. Most pilots fall into a coma. Those who wake up are never the same." Lisa had volunteered for this test despite the risks. Humanity needed to understand how Devourer ships worked. How long was the longest connection? 47 seconds, by a Trendali pilot. He died 3 days later. Lisa nodded and sat down in the pilot seat. The tendrils immediately began to attach to her arms, legs, and neck. They felt warm and alive, like tiny snakes. "Lisa, you don't have to do this," came Jake's voice through the communication system. He was watching from the observation deck. "Yes, I do," Lisa said. "If we're going to fight them, we need to understand them." The connection activated, and Lisa's world exploded into chaos. Suddenly, she wasn't just Lisa Carter anymore. She was connected to thousands of other minds, all thinking as one. The sensation was overwhelming, like trying to listen to 1,000 conversations at once. But Lisa's human mind, shaped by millions of years of evolution on a hostile world, did something no other species had managed. Instead of being overwhelmed, She began to filter the information. She focused on one voice at a time, like picking out a single instrument in a symphony. Through the connection, she began to understand the devourer perspective. They didn't see themselves as conquerors or destroyers. They saw themselves as gardeners, harvesting a galaxy full of inefficient, chaotic life forms. To them, individual consciousness was a disease that needed to be cured. They think they're helping us, Lisa said, her voice strange and distant. They believe that joining their collective is the ultimate evolution. They can't understand why we resist. Can you control the ship? Asked Chief Engineer Morden. Lisa's hands moved over the organic controls. The scout ship's engines came online, humming with a sound like singing. It's not like flying a machine. It's like being the machine. The ship wants to return to the collective. How long can you maintain the connection? Jake asked. I don't know. The longer I stay connected, the more I understand them. But I also start to agree with them. They're so certain that they're right. Lisa flew the ship through a series of test maneuvers. The craft moved like a living thing, responding to her thoughts rather than her actions. But she could feel the collective consciousness pressing against her mind, trying to convince her to join them. The key is their certainty, Lisa said, fighting to maintain her individual thoughts. They've never encountered a species that could resist their collective. They don't understand how we can choose to remain separate. After 2 minutes, Lisa, disconnected from the ship's systems. She collapsed in the pilot seat, exhausted but alive. The alien scientists stared at her in amazement. You maintained the connection for over 2 minutes, said Chief Engineer Morden. That's impossible. Human minds are different, Lisa said, slowly recovering. We're used to chaos and conflict. We've spent our entire evolution fighting for individual survival. The collective consciousness is just another hostile environment to us. Dr. Amy Foster joined them from the laboratory. I've been studying the metal fragments, and I think I understand how they work. The material doesn't just absorb energy. It converts it into something else. What kind of something else? Jake asked. Information. The ships are constantly learning. From every attack, every interaction. They're adapting in real time, so they get smarter every time we fight them, Ben said. Exactly, but there's something else. The ships aren't just machines. They're extensions of the collective consciousness. Every ship contains the minds of everyone the Devourers have ever absorbed. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. The Devourers weren't just conquering the galaxy. They were building their fleet out of the minds of their victims. That's why they're so certain they're right, Lisa said. They have the memories and knowledge of every species they've conquered, but they've filtered out anything that contradicts their worldview. Jake looked at his team and the alien scientists around him. Then we need to show them something they've never seen before. Something that doesn't make sense to their collective mind. What do you have in mind? Amy asked. We need to think like humans, not like the peaceful species they've been conquering. We need to be unpredictable, chaotic, and individual. General Thix Ara's scales shifted to a worried yellow. That sounds extremely dangerous. Good, Jake said. Dangerous is what we do best. As the meeting ended, each human team member understood their role. Amy would continue studying Devourer technology, looking for weaknesses. Lisa would train Federation pilots to interface with captured ships. Ben would develop new tactics based on human warfare concepts. But they all knew that understanding the enemy was just the first step. Soon, they would have to face the Devourers in actual combat. And when that day came, the galaxy would learn what made humanity so uniquely qualified to fight an enemy that had never known defeat. Engineer Rick Davis stood in the Federation Council chambers, holding a datapad that contained what he believed was the key to saving the galaxy. Around him, alien leaders from hundreds of worlds listened with growing horror as he explained. His plan? You want to do what? Ambassador Zephyr asked, his crystalline skin flickering with disbelief. Turn Earth into a trap, Rick repeated calmly. We lure the Devourer fleet to our home system and use the planet itself as a weapon. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Counselor Tessara of the aquatic Murloth people rose from her water-filled seat, her fins trembling with outrage. This is madness, she declared. No civilized species would deliberately endanger their homeworld. Your planet is your most precious resource. That's exactly why it will work, said Captain Jake Morrison, stepping forward to support his engineer. They won't expect us to use our own home as a battlefield. Dr. Amy Foster activated a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. The Devourers have conquered over 300 worlds in the past year. In every case, they found populations trying to evacuate or hide. They've never encountered a species that stands and fights on their homeworld. Because it's suicide, said Counselor Vexron, a tall alien with multiple eyes. If you lose, your entire species dies. If we don't fight, our entire species dies anyway, Ben Rodriguez pointed out. At least this way, we choose where and how the battle happens. Rick activated another display, showing Earth's weather patterns. Look at our planet from a military perspective. We have constant storms that would disable most ships. Our magnetic field deflects radiation that would kill other species. Our gravity is strong enough to trap vessels that aren't designed for it. Your oceans alone would be lethal to most Federation species, Amy added. The pressure, the salt content, the temperature variations. But humans have lived on and under those oceans for thousands of years. Counselor Tessara as water bubbled. With distress. You're talking about fighting a space battle in your own atmosphere. The damage to your planet would be catastrophic. Earth has survived asteroid impacts, ice ages, and supervolcanic eruptions, Jake said. We've learned to live with catastrophe. It's made us stronger. The Federation leaders looked at each other with expressions of confusion and fear. The human plan went against every instinct they had developed over millions of years of peaceful evolution. There's another reason this will work, Lisa Carter said, joining the group. She had just returned from another test flight in a captured Devourer ship. The collective consciousness can't understand individual sacrifice. Every time we put our lives at risk for others, it creates confusion in their network. Explain, said Ambassador Zephyr. Their entire society is based on collective survival. They make decisions based on what's best for the whole group. But humans regularly choose to die for each other, even when it doesn't benefit our species. As a whole, Rick nodded. It's like a computer trying to solve an equation where the answer is undefined. The collective keeps trying to process why we would choose death over absorption into their perfect unity. And while they're processing that, Ben added, they're vulnerable. The council chamber fell silent as the alien leaders considered the human proposal. Finally, Counselor Mordick of the silicon-based Kethfor spoke up. Even if your plan works, how do you intend to damage ships that absorb all energy weapons? We don't use energy weapons, Rick said with a smile. We use kinetic force. Good old-fashioned mass, moving at high speed. Amy brought up another display, showing Earth's asteroid belt. We've been mining asteroids for decades. Those mining operations can be converted into massive kinetic weapons. A rock moving at the right speed can destroy anything. But the Devourer ships are enormous, protested Counselor Vexron. Some of them are larger than moons. Then we use bigger rocks, said Jake simply. The aliens stared at the humans in amazement. The idea of using asteroids as weapons was so primitive, so brutal, that it had never occurred to any Federation species. There's more, Rick continued. Earth's orbital infrastructure includes thousands of satellites, space stations, and manufacturing platforms. We can convert all of them. Into weapons or defensive systems? You would destroy your own orbital civilization? Asked Tisara. We can rebuild orbital stations, Jake said. We can't rebuild our species. Lisa activated a new display showing Earth's surface. The planet itself offers advantages no other battlefield has. We can use the weather to hide our movements. We can use the terrain to channel enemy ships into kill zones. We can use the gravity to trap damaged vessels. And if the battle goes to the ground, we're fighting on our home turf, added Ben. Every human knows how to survive in environments that would kill Federation species in minutes. Your soldiers would fight in active volcanic zones? Asked Counselor Mordic. If necessary, Ben replied. Humans have been fighting in deserts, Arctic regions, and toxic environments for millennia. We've learned to use hostile conditions as weapons. The Federation leaders were beginning to understand the scope of the human plan. It wasn't just about one battle. It was about using humanity's entire evolutionary history as a weapon against an enemy that had never faced such resistance. What? About casualties? Asked Ambassador Zephyr quietly. Your plan would result in millions of deaths. The humans exchanged glances. This was the part of the plan that the peaceful Federation species would find hardest to accept. We've already calculated the acceptable loss ratio, Jake said. If we can save the galaxy by sacrificing half our population, we consider that a victory. The alien leaders recoiled in shock. The idea that any species would willingly accept such losses was incomprehensible to them. You would sacrifice billions of your own people? Tisara whispered. To save trillions of others? Yes, Amy said firmly. That's what soldiers do. That's what heroes do. That's what humans do. Rick stepped forward. The Devourers expect us to think like the Federation. They expect us to try to preserve every life, to avoid casualties, to fight a clean war. But humans don't fight clean wars. We fight to win. Even if winning means dying? Asked Counselor Vexron. Especially if winning means dying, Jake replied. A dead human who saves others is more valuable than a living human who saves no one. The council chamber was completely silent. The Federation leaders were struggling to process concepts that went against everything they believed about civilized behavior. You're asking us to support a plan that will turn your homeworld into a battlefield, Ambassador Zephyr said slowly. A plan that will likely result in the deaths of billions of humans. Yes, Jake said simply. And you believe this is the right choice? We believe it's the only choice, Amy replied. The Devourers have never lost a battle because they've never fought an enemy willing to lose everything to win. Lisa activated one final display, showing the current positions of Devourer fleets throughout the galaxy. They're getting closer to Earth every day. In 6 months, they'll be in our solar system whether we want them there or not. This plan gives us the chance to control the battlefield, Rick said. To fight on our terms instead of theirs. And if you lose? Asked Counselor Mordic. And we lose fighting, Ben said. But at least we'll have shown them something they've never seen before. Maybe that will be enough to help the next species that faces them. The Federation leaders looked at each other, communicating through gestures and expressions that the humans couldn't interpret. Finally, Ambassador Zephyr spoke. The Federation Council will consider your proposal. But I must warn you, most of our species find your plan ... disturbing. We understand, Jake said. But disturbing is exactly what we need right now. The Devourers have conquered the galaxy by being predictable. They absorb, they adapt, they move on. We need to be something they can't predict or absorb. As the humans left the council chamber, they knew they had presented the Federation with a choice that went against everything the peaceful species believed. But they also knew it was the only plan that had a chance of working. The question now was whether the galaxy's most civilized species would be willing to support the most uncivilized plan ever proposed, and whether humanity would have enough time to prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. The first warning came from the outer sensor stations. Commander Steve Walsh watched his screen as thousands of dark shapes appeared at the edge of the solar system. The Devourer fleet had arrived, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. How? Many ships? Asked Admiral Nancy Brooks from Earth Command. At least 12,000, Steve replied, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. Maybe more. They're still coming through whatever portal they use for faster-than-light travel. Steve commanded the asteroid belt defense stations, converted mining platforms that now bristled with weapons and armor. His job was to slow down the enemy fleet and give Earth more time to prepare. Remember the plan, he told his crew over the communication system. We're not trying to win out here. We're trying to make them angry. The mining stations had been transformed into something the galaxy had never seen before. Instead of elegant energy weapons, they carried massive magnetic accelerators that could launch chunks of metal at incredible speeds. The humans had learned that while Devourer ships could absorb energy, they still followed the basic laws of physics when something heavy hit them. Target the biggest ships first, Steve ordered. Let's see how they like a face full of asteroid. The first salvo launched from 50 different stations. Chunks of rock and metal, each weighing several tons, flew toward the Devourer fleet at speeds that would have impressed any physicist. The Federation observers, watching from safe distances, held their breath. The projectiles struck the leading Devourer ships with the force of nuclear explosions. The dark vessels shuddered and spun, their perfect formations breaking apart. 4. The first time in their long history, the Devourers faced weapons that couldn't be absorbed or converted. Direct hits on 7 ships, reported Lieutenant Tony Miller from his fighter squadron. They're damaged, but not destroyed. Then we hit them again, Steve said calmly. All stations, continuous fire. Make them think twice about coming through. Our neighborhood. The battle in the asteroid belt lasted for 6 hours. The mining stations, designed to work in the harsh environment of space, proved surprisingly effective as combat platforms. When the Devourers tried to board them, they found humans who had spent years working in zero gravity, radiation, and extreme temperatures. They're not built for this kind of fighting, reported Sergeant Maria Santos from Mining Station 7. She had just finished repelling a boarding party with weapons that were originally designed for breaking up asteroids. They expect us to surrender or run. They don't know what to do when we fight back. But the humans knew they couldn't win in the asteroid belt. There were too many enemy ships, and more kept arriving. The real battle would be at Earth itself. All remaining stations begin falling back to Earth, Steve ordered. We've bought them 3 days. Now it's time for the main event. As the battered mining stations retreated toward Earth, the Devourer fleet followed. The enemy had taken losses, but they were learning. Their ships began to adapt, developing new armor and tactics to deal with kinetic weapons. They're getting smarter, observed Dr. Amy Foster from the command center on Earth. Each wave of ships is harder to damage than the last. Then we'll have to get more creative, said Captain Jake Morrison. The battle for Earth's orbital space began as the Devourer fleet entered the gravity well of the planet. This was when the humans revealed the true extent of their preparations. Every satellite, space station, and orbital platform had been converted into a weapon. But these weren't the crude kinetic weapons from the asteroid belt. These were sophisticated systems that used Earth's own gravity as a weapon. Gravity net activated, reported Chief Engineer Rick Davis. All orbital platforms are now broadcasting gravitational distortions. The effect was immediate and devastating. Devourer ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly found themselves pulled in different directions by artificial gravity. Fields. Ships collided with each other, their collective consciousness unable to process the chaotic forces acting on them. "They're fighting each other," said Lisa Carter in amazement. She was piloting a captured Devourer ship, using her connection to the collective to monitor their communications. The gravity distortions are confusing their navigation systems. They can't tell friend from enemy. "That's the point," Jake said. "Chaos is our specialty." The battle moved closer to Earth as the Devourer fleet tried to organize itself. But the humans had prepared for this too. Earth's weather systems had been weaponized in ways that the peaceful Federation species had never imagined. "Hurricane Patricia is approaching the battle zone," reported meteorologist Dr. Sarah Kim. "Wind speeds are over 200 miles per hour. "Perfect," said Admiral Brooks. "All atmospheric fighters use the storm as cover." Lieutenant Tony Miller led his squadron into the hurricane, something that would have been suicide for any other species. But humans had been flying in bad weather for over a century. The storm that would destroy most aircraft became a hiding place for human fighters. "We're invisible to their sensors in here," Tony reported. "The electromagnetic interference from the storm is blocking everything." The human fighters struck from inside the hurricane, appearing just long enough to fire their weapons before disappearing back into the chaos. The Devourers, who relied on precise coordination and clear communication, found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see or predict. "The collective is starting to break down," Lisa reported from her captured ship. "They're experiencing something they've never felt before: confusion." On the ground, Colonel Lisa Grant prepared her forces for the next phase of the battle. The humans knew that some Devourer ships would make it through the orbital defenses. When they did, they would face something no conquered species had ever been able to provide: a ground force that actually wanted to fight on their home planet. "Remember your training," she told her soldiers. "We're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for the right to remain human." The first Devourer. Landing ships broke through the orbital battle and headed for Earth's surface. But instead of finding defenseless cities, they found a planet that had been turned into a fortress. The landing ships touched down in what appeared to be empty desert. Within minutes, they were surrounded by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. The soldiers had been hiding in underground bunkers, using the desert itself as camouflage. "They're expecting us to fight like the Federation," Colonel Grant said as her forces engaged the enemy. "Clean battles with clear objectives. But we're going to fight like humans." The battle in the desert was unlike anything the Devourers had experienced. Human soldiers used the terrain to their advantage, disappearing into caves and ravines, striking from unexpected angles. When the Devourers tried to absorb them into the collective, they found minds that refused to surrender their individuality. "They can't process individual sacrifice," reported Dr. Foster, monitoring the battle from orbit. "Every time a human chooses to die for others, it creates feedback loops in their network." This was the key insight that Lisa Carter had discovered. The Devourer collective consciousness was perfect for species that valued group survival above all else, but it couldn't understand humans who would throw away their lives for abstract concepts like freedom or honor. "Squad 7, this is Private Johnson," came a voice over the radio. "I'm surrounded, but I've got a clear shot at their command node. I'm going to take it." "Johnson, wait for backup," Colonel Grant ordered. "No time, Colonel. Tell my wife I love her." The explosion that followed took out an entire Devourer landing force. But more importantly, it sent a shockwave through the collective consciousness that temporarily paralyzed nearby ships. "One soldier just disabled a 1,000-ship squadron," Amy reported in amazement. "The collective can't process why he would. Choose death over absorption." The battle continued for days. Human forces fought in volcanoes, underwater, in frozen wastelands, and in the middle of thunderstorms. Each environment was lethal to most species, but humans had learned to use them as weapons. "They're retreating," Lisa reported from her position. "Connected to the collective. They're pulling back to regroup." But Jake knew this was just the beginning. The Devourers had been surprised, but they were learning. They would adapt and return stronger than before. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe a week," Lisa said. "But Captain, there's something else. They're scared." The word hung in the air like a revelation. The Devourers, who had conquered hundreds of worlds without ever experiencing defeat, were feeling an emotion they had never known before. "Scared of what?" Amy asked. "Of us," Lisa replied. "They've absorbed the memories of every species they've conquered. But they've never encountered anything like humanity. We're not just fighting them. We're showing them that their perfect unity isn't perfect at all." As the first phase of the battle ended, the humans knew they had achieved something unprecedented. They had made the unstoppable Devourers stop. But they also knew the real test was yet to come. The enemy would return, and when they did, they would bring everything they had. The final battle for Earth and for the galaxy was about to begin. The Devourer command ship was the size of a small moon, its black surface covered in organic patterns that pulsed with dark energy. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his assault shuttle, watching the massive vessel grow larger as they approached it. "Are you sure about this plan?" asked Rick Davis, checking his equipment one more time. "No," Jake replied honestly. "But it's the only chance we have." The past week had been brutal. The Devourers had returned with twice as many ships and new tactics designed to counter human weapons. Earth's orbital defenses were failing, and the enemy was preparing for a final assault that would consume the planet. But Dr. Amy Foster had discovered something important while studying the collective consciousness. The entire Devourer fleet was controlled by a single intelligence aboard the command ship. If they could reach it and disrupt its control, the entire enemy force would collapse. "Lisa, are you ready?" Jake asked his pilot. Lisa Carter was connected to the neural interface of a captured Devourer ship. She had been maintaining the connection for over an hour, longer than any human had ever managed. Her face was pale with strain, but her voice was steady. "I can get us inside," she said. "But the collective is getting stronger. It's trying to convince me that resistance is pointless." "Don't listen to it," Amy said from her position at the science station. "Remember who you are. Remember what you're fighting for." The shuttle approached the command ship's hull, which opened like a mouth to let them inside. The interior was a maze of organic corridors that seemed to breathe and pulse with their own life. "Stay together," Jake ordered his team. "This ship is alive, and it knows we're here." They moved through corridors that changed shape around them, trying to confuse and separate the intruders. But the humans had trained for this. They had practiced fighting in environments that shifted and moved, using their adaptability as a weapon. "The command center is this way," Lisa said, her connection to the ship's systems guiding them through the maze. "But there are defenses. The ship is creating antibodies to stop us." Dark shapes began to emerge from the walls, creatures that looked like a mixture of machine and living tissue. They moved with perfect coordination, blocking the human's path. "These aren't just guards," Amy observed as they fought through the creatures. "They're made from the absorbed consciousness of conquered species. They're fighting us with the minds of the dead." The battle through the ship was unlike anything the humans had experienced. They weren't just fighting enemies. They were fighting the collective memory of every species the Devourers had conquered. Warriors, scientists, and civilians, from 1,000 worlds, all forced to serve their conquerors. "We're not just fighting for Earth," Jake realized as they pushed deeper into the ship. "We're fighting for everyone who couldn't fight back." The command center was a vast chamber filled with organic computers and neural networks. At the center sat a creature that might have once been humanoid, but had been changed by centuries of connection to the collective. This was the Devourer Prime, the intelligence that controlled the entire fleet. "Welcome, humans," it said in a voice like the whisper of dying stars. "You have impressed us. Your resistance has been educational." "We're not here to impress you," Jake said, raising his weapon. "We're here to stop you." The Prime's laughter was the sound of 1,000 voices speaking in unison. "You cannot stop us. We are eternal. We are perfect. We have absorbed the knowledge of every species we have encountered." "Except one," Amy said, stepping forward. "You've never absorbed a species like us." "Your defiance is temporary," the Prime replied. "Soon you will understand the beauty of unity, the peace of collective consciousness, the end of individual suffering." "Individual suffering is what makes us human," Lisa said, her voice strained from maintaining her connection to the ship's systems. "Without it, we're just biological machines." The Prime extended tendrils toward the humans, trying to connect with their minds and force them into the collective. But instead of the easy absorption it expected, it encountered something it had never felt before: absolute refusal. "You would choose death over perfection?" the Prime asked, genuinely confused. "We would choose freedom over perfection," Jake replied, "every time." The battle wasn't fought with weapons or technology. It was fought with ideas, with the fundamental question of what it meant to be alive. The Prime tried to show them the peace of collective consciousness, the end of pain and uncertainty. But the humans showed it something else: the beauty of individual choice, the strength that came from choosing to help others, even when it cost everything, the power of hope in the face of impossible odds. "You are chaos," the Prime said, its voice becoming uncertain. "You are inefficient. You waste resources on the weak. You fight wars among yourselves." "Yes," Amy said simply. "And that's what makes us stronger than you." The Prime's confusion grew as it tried to process the human response. Its entire existence was based on the idea that collective unity was superior to individual chaos. But the humans were proving that chaos could be more powerful than order. "You sacrifice yourselves for others, even when it gains you nothing," the Prime said. "This is illogical." "Logic isn't everything," Jake said. "Sometimes you have to act on faith." The word faith sent shockwaves through the collective consciousness. It was a concept that the Prime couldn't process, couldn't absorb, couldn't understand. The idea that beings would act without certainty of success was completely alien to the collective mind. "You are a virus," the Prime said, its voice becoming distorted. "You spread chaos and inefficiency wherever you go." "Maybe," Lisa said, "but we're a virus that chooses to help rather than harm." The Prime's form began to flicker and distort. The collective consciousness was breaking down, unable to process the contradictions that humanity represented. How could a species be both violent and peaceful? How could they be both selfish and selfless? "Your existence is impossible," the Prime said, its voice now barely a whisper. "Impossible is what we do best," Jake replied. The Prime's form collapsed, and with it, the collective consciousness that had controlled the Devourer fleet for millennia. Throughout the galaxy, Devourer ships stopped moving, their crews suddenly faced with individual consciousness for the first time in their existence. Some ships turned on each other, their crews unable to function without the collective's guidance. Others simply shut down, their operators overwhelmed by the sudden return of individual thought. A few began to retreat toward the edge of the galaxy, seeking to rebuild their collective far from the chaos that humanity represented. "It's over," Lisa said, disconnecting from the ship's systems. "The collective is broken." As the human team made their way back to their shuttle, they passed through corridors filled with former Devourer drones who were experiencing individual consciousness for the first time. Some were terrified, others were angry, but all were free. "What happens to them now?" Amy asked. "They get to choose," Jake said. Maybe for the first time in their lives, they get to choose who they want to be. The return to Earth was triumphant. The Devourer fleet was in chaos, with ships fleeing in all directions. The immediate threat to the galaxy was over, but the real victory was something deeper in the weeks that followed. The Federation Council met to discuss the implications of humanity's victory. Ambassador Zefter stood before the assembled representatives, his crystalline form glowing with what might have been embarrassment. "We owe the humans an apology," he said. "We contacted them because we thought they were weapons. We were wrong." "What are they then?" asked Counselor Tessara. "They are teachers," Zefter replied. "They have shown us that our peaceful evolution may have made us weak. That sometimes the willingness to fight is the only thing that preserves peace." The Federation offered humanity full membership and leadership of a new galactic defense force. But the humans had a different idea. "We don't want to lead," Jake said at the ceremony. "We want to teach. We want to show other species that they don't have to be victims." Dr. Amy Foster established the first Human Federation Training Academy, where peaceful species could learn about concepts like tactical sacrifice, individual initiative, and the strange human ability to find hope in hopeless situations. "The galaxy is full of species who evolved on gentle worlds," she explained to her first class of alien students. "But gentleness isn't weakness. It's a choice. And sometimes you have to fight to protect that choice." The Academy's first graduation ceremony was attended by representatives from across the galaxy, species that had been conquered and freed. From the Devourers stood alongside those who had never known war. "Humanity saved us," said former Devourer Drone Kexthel, now an individual for the first time in centuries. "But more than that, they showed us that we could save ourselves." Captain Jake Morrison stood at the back of the ceremony, watching his former enemies become friends and teachers. The galaxy was still dangerous, and there would always be new threats. But now, the peaceful species had learned that they didn't have to face those threats alone. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Lisa asked, joining him at the back of the crowd. "We did the human thing," Jake replied. "We chose to help even when it was dangerous, even when it was impossible."